everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the BWS Dialogues, our latest podcast where we share everything from marketing insights to pharma, life science, and more. We're so excited to share the BWS story with you today, and we have our guests, Debra and Peter Harrsch. Deb, do you want to give a brief intro to just what Brandwidth Solutions is?
So Brandwidth Solutions is a life science agency. We are full service, so we do everything from public relations through advertising. And if you look at us, we do strategy, lead generation, marketing operations, and analytics. So we work with clients either running their marketing departments or being an integral part of their marketing departments or being very project-based. And we are B2B focused. So contract farm, life science, healthcare diagnostics, and technology, which is software.
Yeah. And Deb, you have very extensive experience in corporate marketing for pharma and life science. You worked with really well-known companies. What led you to go out on your own and form what is now Brandwidth Solutions? And following that, what was really the first, we're actually doing this moment that you experienced?
So in 2005, I left Thermo Fisher Informatics, and I had thought about starting this company the year before. But I got an opportunity to work for a software company, which was Interphase, and Interphase got bought out by Thermo. And I had done the big company experience. I was really looking forward to more of an entrepreneurial experience. And when we got bought out, I led the team through a certain level and then left and started Brandwidth. And the reason I started Brandwidth is I'd worked with a lot of great agencies over the years in my role as director and marketing managers, but I felt like something was missing. And the piece that I felt was missing is the science piece. Everything that we do is science-based, and everything our clients do is science-based. And I felt like they didn't have the experience of sitting down with a core researcher or scientist, or even with the C-suite of a pharmaceutical company. And I had that background from previous positions. I started my career in sales, so that biz dev part of it helped because it enabled me to be able to speak on my feet and also to talk to customers like they want to be talked to. They understand their challenges. From there, I went on to do lots of cool things, but in 2000, I got started in marketing in 2001 as a director level at Berger SFC, which got bought out by Metler Toledo, and went on to be head of Marcom for the AutoChem division, then went to Interphase, and then which became Thermo, and then started Brandwidth. So I started it because I felt like something was missing. Like agencies were great. I'm not dinging any agency, but I felt like they didn't understand the science. And I think it's one of the things our clients say to us. The really cool thing early on when we started getting clients, early on they would say, wow, you understand the science. And that was big because they didn't have to take time to teach us the science, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, we hear it all the time working with SMEs, working with, internal marketing teams that, our We Speak Science motto really means what we say. So what was going back to that question, what was the first moment you experienced where you're like, wow, I'm really out on my own in a digital marketing agency. I'm running my own show.
So I left Thermo mid-January, and the first trade show I hit was PitCon because I knew a lot of people at PitCon. Went to my Rolodex, that's the go-to when you start a business. Went to my Rolodex, was really bootstrapping this all on my own with the help of my husband chiming in just to support the rest of the family while I did this. And I went into PitCon and I pitched, and we walked out with 2 clients the very first show. And I knew we were doing this. We started lining up all the things you have to line up as a company, your LLC, all the legal stuff, all the insurances, all the stuff you have to do to be a company. And, figured out what we were great at, figured out what we weren't good at. I jobbed out what we weren't good at, like bookkeeping. That wasn't an area I wanted to spend a lot of time. So I wanted to spend time in business development and marketing because I realized that telling great stories was a way for companies and their customers to identify each other. The customer would get, oh, they get what I do. You want What you want when people come to your website, that they look at it and say, yeah, they get what we do.
Yeah. And when you think back to those early days of building a marketing agency, what do you remember most about those first few years? What were some of the main client marketing needs at that time, and how does that compare to what clients are wanting now?
So it's interesting because in 2005, there wasn't a ton of digital marketing. It was just beginning, right? There was a lot more print marketing. There was digital ads, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the driver. Like Google search and Google advertising or display ads, that wasn't the driver for a lot of marketing departments. But the one thing, I would say the one thing that was constant through all of the 2 decades, which I can't believe I'm saying, is content. It starts with content. You have to have something to talk about. You have to have something where somebody wants to give you their information for a lead. So the things that are the same then as now is content. Certainly interesting advertising. You know, we did a campaign for a company that was making, once certain columns came off patent, they were making, I want to say a knockoff column, but a generic version of the same column. And we put together a campaign about making sense. And we did the play on words with sense as a logical sense and sense as in money, because the generic was less expensive than the brand. So that hasn't changed. Certainly the other piece that I feel has really changed is maximizing the lead when it comes in. So a lot of these platforms, while we had CRMs, it was early days for CRMs, right? 2004 and 5. It wasn't where they are now. There weren't real marketing automation platforms. There, you know, so we have so many more tools, and we have so much more of an ability to measure stuff. Social media was really a glimmer. I mean, I think like social media really kicked off in our space 2010, 2011, before people were going, yeah, there's something to this social media thing. So I think the one constant has always been content. I think we use it in everything we do. We use it for blogs, we use it for social media, we use it for PR and thought leadership. So that has stayed the same. How content is produced may be changing, but the one constant is definitely content. And then figuring out how you maximize that content to be very integrated. I think from the very beginning, we've always had this integrated approach. So when we work with clients and partner with them, our goal is to figure out when they're producing something, how it can be used in multiple ways and multiple formats. So that part hasn't changed. But certainly the digital ads and how they're used, and you see it, Meg, even in the social media side, how social media is used, what is the GEO doing, the generative engine optimization looking at, all those things have changed. But certainly content hasn't changed, and storytelling hasn't changed. How we tell the story may have changed, but the fact that we need storytelling, that customers need storytelling, that hasn't changed.
Oh yeah. One of my favorite questions is, are hashtags dead?
Yeah. Who
Yeah,
knows?
so
Give it some time. Give it a week or
I
two.
don't think they are, but you know, a lot changes in 20 years. I mean, we're talking about 2005 to 2025. And so I think, Deb, even in 2025, you've spoken as an entrepreneur for startups, and at CPHI, you spoke on a panel about forming startups. So, you know, thinking back to 2005, 2006, even 2010, what were some of the biggest challenges of, you know, building and then continuing to manage a B2B marketing agency in the life sciences space back then?
I think some of the challenges are making sure you're keeping constant with the tech, up to date with the tech, finding the right team members, of which you're one of. And I think that's always a challenge, right? Because I believe, and I've always said this, that culture starts with the CEO. How you feel about your employees and how you integrate the team starts always at the top. And I'm sure, I don't care how big the company is. I've worked for very large corporations, and I always could tell the difference. And it's based on the CEO, especially when CEOs change out and they're trying to figure out where they fit into the dynamic and what they're driving towards. So I do think that lots of things change, but building out the right team that can interface and work together. When someone has to drop the ball, someone else picks up the ball, and being very on top of the tech and the science. You know, science changes too. and what are the issues that your customers are facing and their customers are facing, and how do we get across the solutions to those challenges, and how do we enable our clients to tell their story. The other thing I don't feel that's changed, and I don't know if this is a Brandwidth thing or not, but it's always our client first. It's always our clients first. It has very little to do with the Brandwidth name. It's got a great name in the industries, but the reality is it's not what's important. It's enabling your clients to drive their business. Because at the end of the day, if they're successful, you're successful. And it has to be about them.
Yeah. Yeah, client centricity is such a huge topic today. And going beyond just what our clients need, Peter, do you have anything to add from the science side of things?
Yes. 20 years ago, the scientists relied more on print media, direct sales from a sales team from the various vendors, etc., and exhibitors at conferences and trade shows. The marketing departments and agencies focused on those types of interactions at that time. And less with the internet, even though the internet was developing, but there wasn't necessarily a lot of good content on the internet for the different companies and the different products. So now the internet and social media dominate more for the scientists to find out about products and services that they need in the laboratory or in manufacturing or whatever. So I think then uh, it changed, and now they're for purchasing decisions. They get more information today from doing internet searches and looking at
Mhm.
social media, etc. And they're further on in their decision for what they're going to purchase than than before.
I to ski off that a little bit, customers have had the same journey: where, consider, to buy, and then keep engaging. That journey hasn't changed over the years. It's where they got the information from a where to consider. And as Peter pointed out, customers have done 60 to 70% of their homework before they've even spoken to a rep. So it's not just about creating content that's on their website. It's about getting content in third-party publications that the audience is reading, right? Because we do a lot of thought leadership for our clients. And what we have found, it's not always a bespoke article or a custom article on publication. It's really about being part of the conversation when they're talking about trends, when they're looking forward to what's happening in the industry. And some of our industries, there's a lot happening. Some of it's geopolitical, some of it is resource based, some of it is, tariff based, if you will. But they're making these decisions before they even talk to a rep. So it doesn't diminish the rep. What I think happens is we have to find a way to reach that audience so they've got that research done. We do personas for our clients all the time, and we map out their journey. So we create content around that journey to make sure they're getting through the aware to consider. So when they're getting ready to move from consider to buy, our clients are part of the mix. So you're right, everything was print media. There's still print media, but in a different digital way, if that makes sense, right? So every single publication is digital now. It's not just print. So if you're going to have both forms, then you've got to make sure what you're putting in there is clickable, makes sense, has QR code, all those things, but also that they can find you in more places. I think the other thing that's changed is there used to be an old adage, maybe it was a wives' tale, but marketers used to say people need to see your name 6 to 8 times before they remember it. I guarantee you it's way more than that now. It's way over 18 times. And they need to see it in different places. It can't just be in one place, right? So that's the mix has changed a little. And how you approach that mix changes a little. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about digital transformation over 2 decades, and marketing tools develop, new things come out. We're
Exactly.
dealing with AI in the mix now. And so I think those shifts have been a big challenge and also just very impactful on how life science companies communicate to their
Right.
B2B audiences. Let's dive more into the science side of things. Peter, what do you think today's audiences expect from scientific communication today that they didn't really necessarily expect 10 or 15 years ago.
Well, today, content is still really important. And now, today, content has to have more information, more or less, in it. They don't want to see a marketing
Plus,
brochure, et cetera, and fluff. Yeah, good point. Good word. Uh, and the information has to be concise and accurate. And to be effective, the content needs to be more targeted to the specific area that the scientist is interested in.
right.
And they need and want to be able to find that information, the right information, quickly.
Yeah, so that mix of making sure it's not just on your website, but it's also in places where they're going to read. You know, scientists, well, most people, they read other publications, right? So you want to make sure that you are where your audience is, right? We want our clients to be where their audiences are. So it's finding the right mix and not just always content. Sometimes that content expands into webinars and sponsorships. Content comes in a lot of formats. You know, people always think of content as the written word, but content comes in blogs, it comes in podcasts, it comes in sponsorships, it comes in lots of formats, it comes in video. So figuring out the best way to present that content and that story. Also, you know, now we have this GEO, right? So that's the generative engine optimization. I've also called it AO. I mean, I can't keep track of all the acronyms at this point. But what's happening is you have to tell customers in that first few paragraphs what the value is of what they're reading. Because if you can't get that hook and grab them early, they're gone. And the reality is that has not changed for decades. Heck, it hasn't changed probably for a century, only the format with which it comes, right? So that's the key. It's how do I get that hook, that story, so they understand why they want to go on reading the piece. And it's interesting because we had a client go to a third-party marketing platform. They had a little course on marketing, and they said, you know, you got to get them in the first two paragraphs, so they've left the page, and that includes the AI. And I'm like, so the AI is not reading all of it. You've got to get them on the front end. What's the value? What's the value of me reading any further? What's the value proposition? How you present it may change a little bit. I know Geo likes questions. We can't talk to our customers always in questions. So there's a balance. It's really about providing the information to their journey to get them to the buy moment, to get them to want to have that further conversation. Or in our world, the marketers' world, get them to the SQL, right? To the sales qualified lead, and then have marketing support that process after the sales qualified lead all the way through the buy decision.
Yeah. Um, you know, as we're talking about these things, we're talking a lot about progress, but we're also talking about change. What is a recurring challenge that you've seen, Deb, when it comes to companies and facing, you know, a challenge in their marketing communication efforts?
Budgets.
Yes.
I'm going to be honest, because what happens is we have an interesting economy right now, and we've faced interesting economies before, certainly during COVID, right? And right after, it was an interesting economy. It was great for science because they needed science and healthcare. They needed those tools, even for technology. But it's always the first place that gets cut, because oftentimes management or the C-suite sees it as a line item expense. What they don't realize is that marketing is the front end of their sales engine. Some do, some don't. We actually had a client, he gave me a great analogy. He said to me that we find that marketing is salesperson zero. So he looked at me and said, so you are salesperson zero. You bring in the lead, you support us while we're having dialogue with the client. And then on the back end, you're supporting their future knowledge to make a decision. Because we know in our market segments, people aren't making decisions in 24 hours. It's unusual. Normally, they're doing their homework. They have to take it back to a committee, whatever it is the process to get it through purchasing, because they're not small buys, right? If it's software, it could be a couple $1 million. If it's a mass spec, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we know they're not buying it from a catalog item. It's not a SKU number. We also know that they're They have to get it past a committee. So what do? They've already come for the demo and they are really interested in the product. How do you support it on the back end? So marketing takes that lead all the way through it. Even for our clients that are more transactional based or SKU number based, if you will. I don't want to use the word transactional because that's not really a correct term, but reagents and antibodies and things like that. The reality is they still have to keep the conversation going because you want that next thing that they want. You want to be top of mind on their list. And there's that balance between over marketing and under marketing. So I think one of the challenges, and I think it's a challenge for marketers. So there's actually, I guess I feel that there's two. One is budgets. The second is measurability. And that's where the analytics piece comes in. The view is if you can't measure it, it's not moving the needle. I agree with that to a certain level. We try to measure everything we can. You do the Google ads, G4 analytics, you're doing digital ads, you're doing LinkedIn, social media, you're measuring as much as you can measure and building it out. So this past year, we launched Lead Insights because I wanted in one place for someone to be able to go and have all the information they needed of how their marketing efforts were doing and could also pull in the information from the CRM on the funnel, the sales funnel, so you can marry the items together. So it's a balance. It's about, can we do budgets? How we can, and the other key to this is how do you maximize a budget? We recently had a new client come to us and say, listen, this is the project, this is the budget, you got to figure out how to stay within it. So you maximize that spend to help them get to their end goal. It doesn't mean that they don't need more budget going forward, but at least get them to the point where they're making somewhat of an impact. So I think the two things I would say is definitely budgets and measurability.
Yeah. I think I totally agree with you there, Deb. I think budgets are a tricky thing and everyone wants to see immediate ROI. They want to see immediate numbers because we live in a fast-paced world. In that fast-paced world, another challenge I see is AI. I think a lot of people are a little scared, some are embracing it, and maybe a lot of people are in between. So as AI becomes more integrated into marketing, how do you see it influencing the balance between scientific communication, storytelling, and even building trust in such complex B2B markets?
Yeah, it's interesting. I heard a recent, and I think it was IBM, who said while they let a lot of people go when they brought on their AI tools, and they had the aha moment that the two places that they needed humans was marketing and sales. Because marketing, it's a one-on-one conversation with the customer. So it's now a people-to-people thing. It doesn't mean that you can't use the tools. We use AI tools all the time. We use AI tools to synthesize a lot of information. When clients give us a ton of background information, it's a great way to synthesize the information so we can keep our pricing tight and be able to deliver on time. So we'll use AI tools for that. You may even use AI tools for an outline if it's a large piece, even maybe a toss for a first draft. But we find that AI doesn't communicate well with scientists, and they can spot on know when you're using it because they're not being spoken to human. I don't know where AI winds up 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I'm not going to look down that crystal ball. I just know that there is a place for both. I don't think AI takes the place of human communication. Marketing is 6 to 9 months ahead of sales. So when they cut a marketing budget, they kill their sales team in 6 to 9 months. In the case of AI, you need to find a way to make it fit within it. Some customers are very concerned about AI, about losing privacy. So there's things you have to do to protect that privacy. You always have to have a paid for subscription. There's a bunch of things you can do. I think it's going to be part of the mix always. Even in our Lead Insight, we have Copilot to do the analysis. So there are things and tools that make it faster and easier to use. But the reality is you're talking human to human. You're not talking AI to AI. And scientists still have to do the work. And even when using AI, you need humans to interact on what does that look like? What does that conversation have to look like?
I mean, it's all about reaching the end client. I'm kind of even laughing to myself about AI and sounding more human versus robotic. That is something that I had added into my team spotlight. We are going through our different team members, sharing a little bit more about who we are at Brandwidth Solutions.
Right.
And when it comes to AI, I know AI loves that M dash, but I have been writing with an M dash for years and years. So I
They
always
took
laugh
credit
when
for
I,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting because it happened recently, and we had this conversation on our team call. So a lot of people take content and put it into a tool that says how much was this written by AI versus human. And what's fascinating is it picked up on the M dash. And we had a client, we were chatting on the phone. So I did a little research when we were chatting. So just a little history on the M dash. The M dash started in the 15th century when they started doing typography, right? So the printed word as opposed to handwritten. And they needed a space, and it had to be the width of a letter, and they chose the letter M, hence the word M dash. And for some reason, AI thinks that they invented the M dash, and they did not. It's been used since the 1500s, and I know writers love it because it's a bigger pause than a hyphen. Would that be a correct way of saying it?
Yeah, I mean, in communication, it's a pause, it's a breath. It can be,
Exactly.
shifting the emphasis onto what you're saying after rather than
Exactly.
before. And so I think it's a big piece of communication in human conversation. If you're face to face, or even if you're over the computer talking naturally, you can hear the inflection, you can hear different things. And so I
Right.
think the M dash really allows you to communicate, especially on social media when you have 10 seconds, not even, to capture someone's attention or make them care about what you're saying. Having that little bit of inflection you can control over
To
a
pause.
computer
Yep.
screen is so essential. So yeah, I saw a quote. I think I shared this on my LinkedIn profile, but it says that's not AI's or ChatGPT's M dash. It's Emily Dickinson's.
Well, it's actually 15 centuries
Like
M
you say,
dash.
yeah.
It's even past Emily Dickinson, right? It goes all the way back to having a hyphen the width of a letter, and the letter they happened to choose was a letter M. It kind of makes sense, though, why they would choose it. But it had to do with printed text versus handwritten.
Yeah.
Because maybe
And
in handwritten it would just have been a little hyphen. But
yeah,
yeah,
it's
it is
it's interesting to
fascinating.
learn about.
It is fascinating. It's always really cool to find out where did it come from. And when I was explaining this to our client, they were like, I didn't know it went back that far. So she can go to her AI team and says, yeah. Get off the M dash thing. So it's interesting to see. We use it a lot in PR. If you look at the subheads in PR, they use M dashes all the time.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
standard AP format. I mean, that's not even Brandwidth made it up. It's standard AP format.
Yeah. Uh, we could talk about the M dash all day. I think it's a
Yeah, I
fun
know.
topic. But let's shift gears into an even more fun topic and get to know the Brandwidth Solutions team just a little bit more. I think at this time of year, it's fun to look back and reflect. Brandwidth Solutions celebrated turning 20 years old, and so Deb, over the last 20 years, how would you describe the culture that we have at Brandwidth Solutions, and what qualities in our team make you the most proud?
First of all, I'm super proud of the entire team. I think everybody works hard. I think the part that I love the most is how supportive each other is. So we have a colleague whose husband is on board ship. They have to be in another country, and I've watched the entire team come around to support her through that transition. I've had some of our team members have had gone through life-changing events, whether it's the loss of a parent or a move. It could be a move. And they've said to me, I can feel the weight being lifted off me because the team members, without being asked, just came in and picked up the lift. I think the part that I'm most proud of is how much we care about each other, and how we don't have to be asked. It's how can we help you? It starts with the conversation. How can I make this better for you? How can I make this easier for you? I think when you work in companies, and Peter's worked in a lot of companies, large and small, I think that you look back and you learn from the good, the bad, and the ugly, I call it, right? You see all three phases in a company. Not all companies, but you'll see it. So you know early on, at least when you build a company, I don't want that, I do want this. Maybe we'll have some of that. So I think there's some of that in the mix, right? It's what is the thing you want? I want my team members to come to work every day and they're happy that they're working there. Not like, oh, we've all had those jobs, right? Where you walk in and it's drudgery and you feel like you're being ground down. I don't want that. I want everybody to feel like their voice matters, that they could always come to me and say, I have a problem. We do have somewhat of a structure, but it's not, fast, super nailed in hierarchy. And I think that's a differentiator. And I think our clients feel it more importantly, because they can see how we work with each other, how one picks up for the other. And when we take a new client on and they're working with different team members, they get the sense that we're all working in that same direction to make them win. It's not about us winning, it's about them winning. So I think that's the culture I see. But I think you should really ask, people say, who works for you? And I always say, no one works for me, they work with me. I don't have this notion of, well, I'm the CEO and I'm willing to be talked down. There is at no time my team members can't say, well, we don't agree. And I'll say, okay, tell me what I got wrong, or I'll even ask, this is my view. Did I get something wrong? And I think it's that willingness to learn and that willingness there to be there for each other and fill in because we are all on a life journey, right? And we have lives outside of work. So we want to be there for each other as they go through that process.
Yeah, and I think we have a really warm team. We meet weekly, and that's our time to catch up, not only on client things, but also on, the internal side of what we're all working on. And I think that's a really unique approach internally, but we also have a unique approach externally. So what do you think sets our approach apart when we translate complex science into clear communication for our clients?
So I think the fact that we understand the science is the benefit, because they're not having to explain it to us. But the other side of it is, I've had comments from clients that have said to me, when your team comes to do an SME interview, no matter if it's on social media or content, or even as we're working through creative briefs, they come with really smart questions because we've done all the homework ahead of it. We'll ask for background material. We'll look into what we see on the web. And because we play in certain spaces, we're up to date. We belong to organizations that keep us abreast of what's happening in the industry that our customers are facing. We're members of PBOA. We have done panels at CPHI. So that enables us to be part of that bigger ethos of understanding what's happening in the marketplace. And I think we come with that information ahead of time. And the cool thing about interviewing SMEs is we get to learn even more, right? So they come, our writers will come, and our department heads will come with information ahead. They'll give us, and perhaps the client will give us some background information. Even when we're writing press releases, Chari is, building out, she's researching what the competitors are doing. We understand their messaging. We make sure everything's in line. So I think we come prepared. And it's not where we're starting with just a blank piece of paper and say, well, tell me about your product or service. It's got to be more than that. And because they understand the science, they can ask logical questions, right? They can go through and ask more questions and tease off of it. That's why I think SME interviews are so important. A lot of clients, they'll say, oh, we'll just write it down. But then we lose the opportunity of that follow-up question. And I even watch it in press briefings. When we've done press briefings for clients about press release that's coming out or new things happening in companies, I love the ski off from one editor to another, because someone will ask a question and then someone will ski off that question because they'll want a little bit of a deeper dive and wanting for more information. So I think those things are important.
Yeah. You're kind of already diving into it a little bit, Deb, but are there any specific campaigns that you can share? Maybe not necessarily from start to finish, but anything that comes to mind that really captures the spirit of what we do?
We had a client, and this is a bit ago campaign. We did this client, their goal was to be acquired. They were owned by venture backed, equity backed, and their goal was to be sold. So they were doing a campaign around the size of pills, for children. The FDA at that time had said we want a phase 4 clinical trial because they knew physicians were just telling parents cut the pill in half. And I learned so much. So in the process of learning about why that doesn't work, part of it had to do with the formulation, but the bigger part of it had to do with the cleaning of the equipment between runs. What adults can handle is not what children can handle. So I learned a lot. We did a white paper, we did a case study, we did an advertisement, we did a press release. And what was interesting about the ad is the CEO was traveling. And we didn't get to present concepts because he was traveling. So we had to do it in PDF form, and we couldn't get him on a call. And he had several images to pick from, and I didn't think the one he picked could be the most impactful. The ad was due on Tuesday. He wasn't due back till Monday. And I got to give my team a ton of credit because we had to create the landing page, which needed the image and the copy. And we needed to create the actual ad in both print and digital. So he comes back on the Monday, and I said to him, I really think there's a more impactful image than the one that was chosen. And he says, okay, talk me through it. So I talked him through it, and I said, this is why I think this is the better image, because it drives home the point. And you said 11 seconds to get their attention. In print advertising, you have 4.7 seconds, what's been measured before they turn the page. So if the image, and this includes in digital, think about all the ads they see digitally on all these trade pubs. If you can't grab them with the image, then they aren't looking any further. You have to have something to get them to take the breath, an M-dash breath, whatever you want to call it, right? You have to give them something to say, okay, I need to look a little longer. So he said, all right, I'll go with your thought. So we go to the trade show. We were launching it at a trade show. I put it in the book, in the trade show book. We did the print ad in the book. We did digital ad campaign around it. And he said to me, as we walked up to him in the trade show, we did his booth, everything was ready to go. We had press lined up for the interview. The press release went out. We embargoed the release. We dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. So everything was lined up for this. And he said to me, print ads do not work. I said, can you just trust me, please? So they actually, 5 people showed up with the ad in their hands that we need to sign a CDA. And it was about, certainly the product service was right spot on, but it was about grabbing their attention and then fulfilling that attention. And it's interesting because this campaign ran for over a year. And they always say, don't market in like August. You're not going to get any attention. Well, they weren't using back then a marketing automation platform. So we did a landing page within the website, but the only way you could get there was via the ad. We weren't using QR codes back then. It was literally type in the vanity URL or click on the digital ad and get there. They had 900 people go to that page in the month of August. And out of that, they had 11, fill out the form downloads for the white paper, but 138 downloads of the case study. And it really was really a great product for their customers. And it was a great win. At the end of the day, they did get sold. But the bigger news is they were like in 7 different articles in all the pubs about this particular service and product. In addition, they had 20 opportunities, and 5 came in, 5 were in the hopper, and their opportunities ran between 3 and 5 million. So clearly it was a great win for them. But it definitely showed the team stepping up because everything was due on the Tuesday. I couldn't stretch out or move out the deadline. So that meant that Monday, we had that call at 9 a.m. on that Monday. And that meant before the end of day, we were getting approval for the final ad. So it was definitely it showcased the team really coming together and driving it home. The press release didn't need anything that changed. It was more the ad campaign itself, and the landing page and the website page, all the things that had to be done. But it showed the team really, sticking with it and saying, we think she's right, let's go. We waited, and it worked out for the client. At the end of the day, it was perfect for the client, and that's the bigger win.
Yeah, I love hearing that story. have seen that campaign, and I think that the ROI is incredible, but also the creativity and just our team's ability to put on their go hats and go is so it's just awesome to be a part of. Peter, do you want to share a little bit about how that panel went at CPHI?
Sure. The panel was on CROs and how the CROs can build a better relationship and do better with their clients or customers. And there was a panel of four other people who were experienced either in the CRO, they were CROs, or they were working with CROs from
Right.
uh, their respective companies. And a couple of the things that really came out was building the communication levels uh, between the two companies, absolutely essential. And with the project management team that you put together, you include people from project management, a key person from the CRO and a key person from the customer's company. And those are the people that coordinate all of the stuff that goes on there. And at the end of the session, we asked for questions, and nope, everybody said, "Oh, we don't have any questions. You covered everything that we needed to know." So that was pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure there is a recording of that, so we can make sure that that's added into our show notes. And
Yes.
also, Deb spoke at CPHI Frankfurt, so we can throw both of those recordings into the show notes. I think.
I want to just touch on something Peter mentioned, because earlier you mentioned something about, what differentiates our team or differentiates us. And if it's okay for me to ski off of that, one of the things that I had a meeting with a customer, a prospect in at CPHI, and I was telling her about some of the tools we use and how we use Monday.com for transparency, that people can track their projects. And she looked at me and she said, "How transparent of you." I know that our customers are asked questions all the time, and it may be at a time that they're working on something on the weekend and they can get an email out, but we may not catch the email. So how do we make it transparent? And some of the tools we use on our project manager, they're excellent at it. They're excellent at making sure the customers know where their projects are, so they're not ever put in a position of, oh my, where is it? And we started some of these projects during COVID, right? We used some of these tools during COVID. We were building a website. We couldn't have any meetings. We couldn't be in person. And while you certainly could do Zoom, Teams was in its infancy, more or less, it wasn't enough to keep everybody informed on a regular basis. So use of tools and project management, as Peter pointed out from his panel discussion, is key. And it's also key for our customers too, to make sure that they have that capability of seeing things real time. And Meg, you can speak to that more than I can, because a lot of the things you do in social media give that transparency to them, where they know exactly where everything is at every step.
Yeah, exactly. With our blog process, you can see when we're having the background come in, when we have the first draft expected to share with our clients. We actually work with clients on turnaround times. So all of those are in there. A client knows when they need to have their feedback
Right.
to us. And then it goes all the way from initiating the blog background to having the final blog published. And then the social media that follows and supports and drives traffic to your website, but also helps support your LinkedIn engagement. So yeah, I think our platform is so transparent with clients. It's a great tool for communicating.
Yeah, I think more than ever, people are doing a lot more with less. So we have to find ways to enable them to have information real time. Lead Insights is an example, building AI agents is another example. But how do we provide information to the client faster, smarter, and gets them what they need to do?
Yeah, and that comes with a lot of digital transformation, and we've kind
Yep.
of talked about that throughout this whole conversation. I think when you think about digital transformation, it's easy to talk about change and what's changing. But Deb, I want to know from you, what excites you the most about where Brandwidth Solutions is today?
you know, when I look back to where we started, I'm incredibly proud of the entire journey. I love the fact that I have team members that are smarter than me in a lot of categories, and I love learning from them. I think all of that stays the same. I think as we work through the new tools that come out and how our customers our clients need to interface with their customers, we keep learning and we keep trying to be ahead of that learning. It changes really quickly, and we know that. But it's really about how do we enable to, again, we haven't changed that. It's client wins, right? It's them winning with their customers and how they tell their story. Even when we talk to founders, they don't know about the storytelling. They only know about the tech, right? They're really into the tech, but the tech isn't the reason people buy. They don't buy the widget. They buy the story around the widget. So while that has stayed the same through probably the centuries, it's really about how you present it and what formats you present it in. So it's balancing. I don't have a crystal ball that tells me what that tech's going to look like down the road. I don't. But you have to keep navigating the tech, and you got to keep staying on top of the tech and figuring out the best way to get there.
Yeah. Deb, I think it's funny that you mentioned you don't have a crystal ball, but could you give us one prediction you have for how B2B marketing in life science, pharma, biotech, any other science industry will continue to evolve over the next couple of years?
I think that there'll be more tools that people will use to gather information. I think websites will change over time. I mean, I remember building websites on HTML. So the fact that we have these new platforms that are easier to use, easier to update, and don't have to be coded to do it, not hard coded in, is a huge win. I think marketing will become more personal. It is personal now, but I think it's very personal in the B2C space. But I think in the B2B space, it's personal, but not super personal. I think it's going to get more personal, that account-based marketing part of it. So I think there's going to be more personality into that marketing piece.
Yeah. Yeah, and Peter, on the client side of things and taking that outside of marketing more into science, do you have any predictions for the future of what is life science? That's a hard one.
Yeah,
That's a
that's a
lot of
tough
tech
one.
in one place.
Yeah, I think as things evolve, and as the various modalities of new drugs and new tech, new med tech, and other types of tech come about and evolve, it's going to be essential that they those companies communicate what they have and what the advantages of what they have are, so they can continue the development and then sell what those solutions.
Yeah, that takes you back to the story, right? So it's not about
Exactly.
it's always been a challenge in marketing because product marketers tend to think in features and benefits, which is fine because they're building out features in their tech. But the customer doesn't see features and benefits. The customer sees, what am I going to get out of it? What's the value for me? That value proposition that the sales teams talk about when they go out and they pitch the product or service. So it's definitely a balance, right? And it's trying to get that message out in a way. And I think how that message plays out will change. Maybe the crystal ball is that when you come to a website, it knows you and it automatically set, and on some of that tech is probably already there, sets itself up and aligns itself based on who you are. I also think there's going to be some challenges. And I think those challenges are going to be cookie rules. I think there's going to be challenges about privacy. We were just in Europe, and every time you go to a website, automatically the cookie policy comes up, right? And I always hit reject all because I don't want them to follow me around. But I think it's going to be more personal. We're going to have to really define the value and really push them. So oftentimes when we work with clients on developing value propositions, and I'll be the devil's advocate and say, so what? All your competitors say that. So it's really about enabling the client to tease out and focus on, we're going to help this customer do X. And then also YZ and whatever. But it's definitely driving to that. And I think in sales, they've been talking about value propositions. God, we've been talking about marketing value propositions for decades. It's not new, but it's really streaming it down. And it's going to be important for AI to read it. So I think some of the new tech is more personalized marketing. And maybe there's a point where the websites conform to what you've searched on their site before. And I know some of that tech exists, especially in the B2C world.
Yeah, and I think we'll see more integration of tools being used across B2B and B2C, like you just mentioned. Going off of that, this is a trek forward. This is a journey. As much as we have buyer journeys, we also have business journeys. So how would you, or what advice would you give to our clients as they trek forward over the next year or over the next 5 years?
Wow. I think it depends on where the client is in their phase, right? So if you're talking about a startup client, I would say don't forget the marketing. Even if you're early stage and you're getting investors, if you don't do anything, if there's no PR, if there's no noise about what your product or service is, you're going to get overlooked because they're going to search for you and you won't be there, right? So there's that. And I think you have to make marketing part of your mix. Don't assume it's a line item. I'll just leave it off. And to those that are further along, I've worked for large corporations in marketing, and marketing is always a percentage of sales. It was never that you didn't do marketing. When I was $178 million division, it was 1.11% of sales. That was the marketing budget. So you have to marry the percentage of sales to marketing. You've got to make that marriage. And if you're early on, that percentage is higher than when you're further along. And if you're doing a new rebrand or a new launch, you have to balance it. So I think they need to do both. I think if you're starting up a company, you have to think of both things. And I know it's the place they're the most nervous about. They're most nervous about, oh my God, I don't have money for marketing. But if you don't, you're not finding customers either. And interesting, my panel was with startup companies and things you would learn. And one of the panelists said it's not for the faint of heart, because it's not. You're putting your house up on the line. You're really plodding along in the footsteps and figuring it out as you go. So it's about balance. And the truth of the matter is, when you go to a venture company or a capital investment company, you have to give them a business plan. And if marketing isn't in that mix, they're going to know you don't understand the market, because you have to define who your customer is and how you're going to get them. That's part of it. So I think those are the things that have to be part of that journey, and a great story. We realize that there are we have clients that have products that are similar to others, but there's always a differentiator. And it's figuring out that voice and that value that's the differentiator and make them stand apart from everywhere else or everybody else.
Yeah, yeah. And Deb, speaking of your panel, being all about startups and business experience, if you were talking directly to a budding entrepreneur who's on the fence about starting their own business, what's one thing you would say to them?
I would say, know what you're good at and do that. Know what you're bad at and hire that. And just have a mindset that you're going to keep going. And you have to decide that's what you want to do, because everybody is not necessarily an entrepreneur. And I'm not saying that they can't be or don't want to be, but make sure you have your legal ducks in a row and your liability ducks in a row. I'm not saying you'll get sued, but you need things like cybersecurity. You need things like liability insurance. I mean, you need stuff. So you have to really learn, write a business plan and figure out what you're good at, what you're not good at, and hire for the rest, but make sure you have a plan and you understand all the elements you need to have to run a business. I think that's what I would tell a budding entrepreneur.
I think that's great advice. I love what you said there. I think, Brandwidth Solutions turned 20 years in 2025. You clearly have the startup entrepreneurial experience that, young entrepreneurs can look up to. How does it feel to celebrate a 20-year milestone surrounded by the people and the work that brought you here?
It's funny. I can't believe it's been 20 years. I mean, wasn't it yesterday we were just starting? I mean, I can look back and feel like it wasn't yesterday because some of the tools we use, the techniques we use, some of the things are different. Some aren't different. But I I can't believe it's been 20 years. There's no, I mean, I keep saying this, like, could it really be 20 years? But it has been 20 years. We've got great team members. We won a lot of awards. We were Inc. 5000 last year. We've been on the top list for the Philadelphia Business Journal for fastest growing businesses, fastest growing women's businesses. So all that stuff is really cool stuff. I love learning from my team and I love building the team. I think they're really a unique, wonderful set of individuals.
Yeah, like I said, it's great to be a part of the team too. We're going towards the end of the year. Everything is closing out. As we look back throughout all of the holidays, all of the end of the year experiences, are there any traditions or moments that capture the spirit of our agency during the holidays?
So one of the things that we do as a team, first of all, we give to our employees around Thanksgiving time. And we do also to our clients a little thank you for being part of this wonderful journey. But we also give to charity. And we've done it every year, good times and bad times, because we know that there are people that have less than we do. And we're very lucky to have the clients we have and the growth that we've seen. It's a wonderful, wonderful situation. So we do give back, and we do it in different ways. And one of our team members once said, what's really great about the fact that we give back is we can't always do it in our private life for whatever reasons, and we give to some, but we wish we could give more. And just being part, because everybody contributes to the growth of an agency. So just the fact that the agency looks back and say, okay, we need to take care of our communities, if you will. So I think those are the things that we always think of. And from a business point of view, we are our client's resource. So we appreciate the fact that they come to us, that they give us the opportunity to work with us, and especially clients that have worked with us with 4 or 5 different companies still coming back to Brandwidth. That's wonderful things. We have clients that have been with us since 2011. And for most agencies, that's pretty remarkable. And I think just to be thankful for where we are, how we got here and where we are, and the relationship we have with our customers.
Yeah. I think this season is very fun to join in all of the festivities, but at the end of the day, it's about that gratitude that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is there a end of the year message that you'd like to close out with, Deb?
Yeah, I'm hoping that everybody has a wonderful holiday season, no matter what holiday they celebrate. And I kind of feel in the States, we start celebrating around Thanksgiving, right? All the way through the new year. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday. I know it's been a tough year. There's been a lot of changes, and it has affected some of our clients because of all the things that are happening in the economy, but more importantly, in that bigger pool of what science is experiencing. So I just hope that, everybody closes out the year strong and happy, and that they can move forward next year and have, a wonderful kickstart to the year. And to be weary. I mean, we talk to our clients all the time about being prepared for January. Don't let January be your, oh, we'll figure it out in January. You need to figure it out now. So a lot of times for clients' ad spends, we'll ski it into January just to give them a little breathing room as they get their budgets on board. I hope they have a wonderful year. I want to thank them so much for being part of our journey as a company and enabling us to give back to our communities, and have a terrific holiday and New Year.
Yeah. Well, for our listeners, that's all we have for this episode of the BWS Dialogues. We thank you for joining us in our journey this year as we started this podcast, and we look forward to new, exciting episodes coming in 2026.